Okay, and now I will formally say good morning, hello, and welcome everybody to what is already the second day of this high-level conference for research perspectives on the health impacts of climate change. It's amazing to see you. To all those of you that were here yesterday with us as well on the first day, welcome back. It's great to have you here. And to all those of you that are joining us as a first today, I'd say welcome to you. I hope we're going to have a great day ahead. I'll shortly introduce myself. My name is Hajar Yagkoubi. I'm a former United Nations Youth Representative for the Netherlands, co-founder of an intergenerational network called 2100. But above all, again, very delighted to be here with you on what is already the second but also the last day of this high-level conference. Can we get an people? That was this, you were laughing. You're not disappointed that we're going to end this soon altogether? Well, either way, actually no awe needed, because there is still a lot that we have on the program for today. I mean, everything. Yesterday we had panels, we had parallel sessions, we had breakouts, debates even, the posters on the hallways where you could see the most concrete of ideas. And today we'll have nothing shy of that. We'll have another day filled with sessions and breakouts, all centering around that same question, right? What are research gaps that we can identify? What are priority needs that we can identify? And how do we make sure that we make that interlinkage between health and climate more, because it's needed more than ever before? Now, this also means that we need to become concrete, which is a very important thing, and it also needs to mean that we need to be forward-looking. Both of these things are going to be happening today. When I talk about being concrete, I will specifically also refer to the fact that we have 2 rounds of posters again today, and even the posters from yesterday will be visible again on the hallway. So to all those of you that haven't voted for a poster yet, please go out on the hallway and check them out. Honestly, they're really great ideas there. It's super concrete, it's tangible, it has to do with the work that each and every one of you is passionate about. But also today, at the very end of the session, we will be announcing 3 winners from the poster competition to hear their pitches on the ideas that they've presented on the hallway there. So if you haven't checked that out, please make sure to do so. Now, I would just say that before we dive in, it's good to take some wisdom and insights from all the sessions that we've had yesterday. And to do that, I am very happy and honored that we'll be having a bit of a reflection and look back session on yesterday. And we have 3 amazing stellar speakers to do that with. So it is with great honor that I would like to call to the stage for a first round of reflection the following 3 women. First off, can I have a big round of applause for our following speaker? She is the Deputy Director General for the DG Research and Innovation at the European Commission. Please, everyone, a big round of applause for Joanna Drake. Welcome, Joanna. Please take either one of the seats. Then that same enthusiasm for the Head of Office at the WHO European Centre for Environment and Health. Please give it up for Francesca Racioppi. There she is. Oh, and even with a little curtsy, we love to see it. Thank you so much. I'm trying to do it back and then go through my knees. And last but definitely not least, we also have in our midst Youth Envoy for the COP27 presidency and COP28 Health Envoy, and not the least of which also the Youth Ambassador for this conference. Please give a big round of applause to Omnia and Omrani, everyone. Please, if you'd have a seat. Welcome. Oh my God, it's so nice to have it. I always love it when we do like a reflection to start the day off, because I think it makes it a lot more intentional, right? Looking back at yesterday, what we learned, what some of the insights and wisdoms were that we were able to derive from it. And maybe if I jump straight into that, maybe Joanna, if I can start with you. I'm actually quite curious to know. I mean, we've had the first day now, we're entering in the second and also the final day, but how do you sort of reflect on that very first day that we had here all together in Brussels? Are there any specific highlights for you?
First of all, good morning to everyone, and thanks for the question, and apologies for my late arrival.
No worries.
I'm very impressed, first of all, by all these discussions. And this has been a long time coming. That's my first comment. I had a past with the Commission in DG Environment where this was discussed, but it was still sort of a little bit under the radar. I don't think we had enough evidence. It seems that more and more people have the evidence, and I'm glad that they're coming to share it all together, especially here in Brussels. So, my first comment is, yes, I'm impressed. Secondly, I would say this means that it is becoming more urgent, because the more knowledge we have, this means that there's a more urgent need to do something about it. And there seems to be the other side of the coin, hopefully, political willingness to do something about it.
Yeah.
The second point, I would say, is that it seems to be more and more undeniable that there are long-lasting impacts on health coming from the effects of climate change.
Yeah.
And this seems to be much more causing evidence of causing various diseases in various population groups. And I would say that the way that climate change, together with air pollution, affects the health of citizens and in Europe and other parts of the globe, as well as food and water security, these are also other, shall we say, not so cavalier. I don't mean it in that way, but these are also, very grave impacts on our overall, I would say, existence, let alone well-being.
Yeah. Thank you so much. If I'm really honest, it continues to baffle me. And I mean, you say it's been a long time coming. We heard that yesterday as well, right? When Maria, for example, mentioned that it took 10 years of slow pushing and nudging to get a health day, for example, at COP. Or I think Sandra Galini even said at some point that you were looked at as crazy if you were sort of talking about the interlinkage between climate and health before. So I think that's also, it's good to realize that, because I think it also underlines the specialty of us being here together and bring these two worlds together, because, as you say, it is ever so needed. When I say that, Omnia, I want to go to you, because, of course, we also heard you yesterday during the opening as well. You're also the youth ambassador for this specific conference. From that perspective, how do you look at, how do you reflect on everything so far? What do you think are some of the more important takeaways that we've seen and heard so far?
Yeah. First of all, just preparing for the session was very difficult, because there are so many takeaways that I had from yesterday.
That's a good sign.
Which is amazing. But one of the key things for me, it started with the first panel that I was part of, especially when the Minister of Malawi emphasized when it comes to funding and how it is a challenge to think about the accessibility and the flexibility of the funding, especially that is being pledged for climate and health. And this is what we've seen at COP28, for example. There has been many pledges of 1 billion, but also many pledges for children and young people for their health and education. But again, the funding comes with no clear roadmap of where is it going to be allocated, how it can be accessed, which is also an issue that many young people and young researchers and organizers have a difficulty in accessing that funding that they need. Another important thing that I was really inspired by was by how mental health was part of almost every single intervention in the conference, which was incredible. But again, what I want to highlight is that as much as mental health affects disproportionately young people, there are many other vulnerable groups whom their mental health is affected. We see in many affected communities experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder after climate-related disasters. But we also see how women and girls experience gender-based violence because of the scarcity of resources, because of crop failure. Crop failure also affects farmers who are dying by suicide because they can no longer provide for their families. So it is important to also look at people who are living with mental health challenges during extreme heat because of their psychoactive medication. They're unable to adapt to the changing temperature. So mental health and climate change is a very complex yet under-researched area that also struggles with getting the funding that it needs. And this brings me to another very important takeaway, which is what Jeremy said around research being vertical. And there is a challenge and a need to incentivize multidisciplinary research.
Right.
But I would also say the silos don't just exist across disciplines, it also exists across generation. Because there are many young, amazing researchers and scientists, but at the same time, when they are asked to do research, it is about asking them about their experience. So they are either participants in a survey or respondents, but they need to go beyond. Yeah. So going beyond just being a group that is being investigated, but also being partners in terms of co-producing the research together.
Absolutely.
So building their capacity, enabling them to translate the research that they themselves help produce back to their communities, but also to their policymakers. Last thing.
It's so much. You're just giving us the entire crash course on what we should take away from yesterday. But maybe, sorry, before you say that, because otherwise I'll forget, because, and then please do share that last point, but what you say right now, it made me think of the last plenary session that we had, where I think it was Andy Haynes and it was Rebecca Grace as well. They were speaking about they said we need policy literate scientists, and I think it was there that Rebecca answered, because we need people to also investigate things that matter to the communities affected from the bottom up. And as you say, it's not just about having groups, be a part of your sort of like sample or your population size in that sense. But it's a totally different sort of input that you get when you let people co-design what you're researching and making them think along of what matters to either their generation or the community that they're perhaps a part of that is being affected. So I just wanted to say that, it's definitely something I think that resonates with many of the sessions that we had yesterday. But sorry, now I made a cliffhanger on that last point.
Thank you. I completely agree with that. And I think the last point specifically for COP28, which is Maria's amazing presentation. And I really loved how, she spoke about how COP28 was very unique in terms of having the health day, having over 2,000 health delegates coming to COP for the very first time, as well as the ministers of health. But I really loved what she said in terms of how can we go beyond being there, but by having health outcomes and metrics, being part of the climate negotiations and discussions, which I've seen, for example, when we talk about health adaptation, this year was important because health was recognized in the first ever framework that was designed for climate adaptation. Because we know for mitigation, we have a goal of reducing carbon emissions. There was never a goal for adaptation. Now there is the global goal on adaptation, and the health sector is a very important aspect of it. But we still need the health scientific community to provide the metrics, to measure the impacts, and to inform the policymakers on how to assess progress, but also how they can ask funding for their countries to be able to adapt as well as mitigate the impacts of climate change.
Absolutely, and that's actually sort of maybe even a good tease for the plenary session that we'll have after this opening, because there we'll be specifically looking at adaptation, also mitigation as well within the healthcare sector. So it's an interesting question. Perhaps the speakers, if you're listening, take it along in your, I see somebody writing. We might hear something back, but no pressure. Thank you so much, Omnia. Francesca, if I can go to you. I'm also so curious, looking back on everything that's been shared so far, how do you reflect on everything that's been discussed yesterday?
Okay, thank you. First of all, this is the best way of making injustice to a super rich day that you had yesterday. But there are a couple of points that stick out for me. And one of them is, and it has already been alluded to by you before, is this word, transdisciplinary. I think that it is unprecedented, the level of awareness that we have developed about the need to be able to work across disciplinary boundaries and to be prepared for that, because we are not, or not yet. And there is a lot that is happening in science that is pushing us in that direction. For example, the link between climate change and the other environmental crisis, the understanding that they are all interrelated and far-reaching. So this transdisciplinary appeal is there. The other thing, and I'm speaking about this from a WHO perspective, so as an organization that has a different as global, but also regional and national mandate, but it has also a convergence of, the characteristic of WHO is that we sit just at the point of contact between science and policy. So from that point of view, I find extremely interesting to see the convergence in agendas. The European Commission is setting up this roadmap. We will be discussing this later on today about research needs. At the WHO yesterday, you heard Maria mentioning, and Jeremy also mentioning this initiative, this REACH initiative, through which we intend to develop and to drive a research agenda from a health perspective. So it is a timely converging movement, which is wonderful because we can have all the critical mass, and I'm looking in the direction of Jeremy. We have a tremendous critical mass of knowledge and science that we can, put to fruition for everybody's benefit. And the other observation that I have is that, and this is why I find this conference super exciting, not only because you have here everybody who is a leader in research, but it's because there have been until now two speeds. The one speed has been the one of the academic world, the civil society, and even the professionals in the health sector. Okay. They have been researching, understanding, and acting much, much faster than governments have been. And what I see that is very exciting is that now finally, and I say finally, I've been a witness of this for the last quarter of a century. So. Nice. Don't quote my age. But this is the first time that we see ministers and ministries coming to us and say, can we sit together and work together? How are you doing that? Yes, we are interested in setting up a department in our ministry to grapple and deal with this. Have you already done so? Why this is unprecedented. It's beautiful.
and Francesca, why do you think it changed?
I think it has changed. In history there is always a momentum. And this has been, unfortunately, it often happens with environmental tragedies. It requires a tragedy, an eye-opener. I think that the fact that extreme weather events have become so more frequent, more intense, and so on, they have been hitting in countries that thought that it would have never happened to them. There have been some collective shocks that have been prompting action, that have been prompting, more alertness as compared to what we saw in the past. Many of you were here perhaps were working in 2003, no? When we had that was the first time that the European Commission started investing into research on heat waves, extreme weather events. It was 2003. The summer of 2003, sorry. 70,000 people dying in Europe that summer, okay? I was, much younger than I am now, and I remember that the scientific community and science, they came together to grapple with that. Before that, it was vector-borne diseases. I'm looking in the direction of Jan here.
Yeah, he gave a presentation on that yesterday,
So, the level of alertness
has changed.
Climate change can shake a government, can shake a cabinet. It's not just, a matter of somewhere else, perhaps in the future.
That's so
and
interesting.
It is a matter of intergenerational justice, not only of justice. So,
you're nodding on Omnia's side, and I second that. But it's interesting in a way because oftentimes, there are also climate tipping points, but there are also sort of social tipping points that we have, right? Where people or communities sort of realize the fundamental need of action and finally get to moving, and then we're collectively sort of like making change. I would like to also maybe turn to the audience for a quick minute because I'm just curious how some of you are feeling coming out of yesterday because, you also said it, Francesca, we're not ready yet and we need to be. So on the one hand, there's a very sort of, stark gray image on that side. And I mean, some of the presentations that we saw yesterday, they were so succinct, so well, on also showing what's at stake if we have inaction. And that can be quite frightening. At the same time, I also hear you say, hey, there are two paths of speed, so to say, and the more slow speed path is maybe getting up to pace a little bit to match the pace at which practitioners and experts are going at within the academic CSO world. So that's also a good thing to see. But maybe the people that were here yesterday, they will recall this little format that we did, the statement game. When people are smiling, they know what I mean. So yesterday, for those of you that weren't here, I read out a couple of statements to you guys. And if you agree with the statement, then you stand up. And if you disagree with the statement, then you remain seated. But it's more to just get a bit of a general understanding, where you were. If you weren't here yesterday, then you can do a handstand, and I'll know that you're like out of the game. But it's just an easy way for us to see who can reflect on yesterday. Okay, so everybody gets the rules, I hope, because I am curious to hear from you on the following statement, whether it applies to you or not. And that statement is, I learned something new yesterday that I'm going to incorporate in my work after the conference. If that applies to you, stand up. And if it doesn't apply to you, then you haven't been paying attention, and I will get to you to question you about that. Oh no, I peer pressured you. I pressured you into standing up. Okay, everybody, freeze! Everybody that still remains seated, shame on you. Just kidding, I'm joking. I also know that some people are here for a first day, so don't worry. But I am very curious to hear, maybe going up. You were quite fast to stand. Were you here yesterday?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Okay. What was it that you learned?
I learned that we need to work together.
Okay.
Because only together we can achieve some improvements, and probably we can make the challenges can be opportunities, but also we can transform also evidence in action. So this is something I like.
That's great. And when you say, so it's really the sort of lesson of partnerships and cooperation, is that something that you're going to take along in the work that you do back home?
Yes, I work for WHO. So one of the main our mandate is to keep and create this partnership. And thankfully we have a very well established partnership with European Commission, and we like to keep it. But then as we can synchronize our activities on a rich initiation with the ongoing European Commission, and it can be a win-win situation.
Okay, that's good. So a little bit more of that working together. Going over here, I see some people standing too. Push myself back. Hi.
And you're going to come over. Hi.
What was it that you learned yesterday?
I think for many in the room, I feel like more than learning something super new, it just added to what I already knew. And I think for me, the papers that are on display, that really, added to,
the posters.
The posters, exactly. So it was really nice seeing what everyone is working on in their individual research groups.
Okay, a testament, folks. If you haven't checked out the posters yet, do it. This is not no commercial, not paid promotion here, but thank you so much. You may all sit down again. Thank you so much for sharing. I have another statement that I want to propose to you, and I'm actually very curious to get maybe a short reflection from the panel also after that statement. But it's to do with what I pointed and hinted at a little earlier. How are you feeling? Because on the one hand, we see what's at stake if there's inaction. We see where we're headed towards if we don't make sure that we bring these worlds together soon enough. On the other hand, we also see glimmers of hope, perhaps some acceleration indeed. The fact that when we look back at where we started from and where we are now, that there is definitely a line of improvement there in bringing this more together. So for that, I have the following statement. Think about it for a second. The statement is, I feel more optimistic about the challenges ahead on this second day than I did starting on the first day. Ooh, did you realize more doom and gloom after all that presentation? The presentation from Jan? I'm joking. Or do you feel like there's some perspective that you've gained on what we can do, and has it made you hopeful? Okay, well, everybody stand up if you feel more optimistic on this thing. No, please do stand up. No, be that's good. And remain seated if you feel less optimistic, less optimistic than you did yesterday. Wow, okay. Oh, the power of optimism is crawling across the room. More people are standing up. Okay, everybody freeze. Everybody freeze. You know, I need to ask you. Okay, everybody. You were the first one to stand up. Sorry, I'm so curious.
I hope I got the question right. So I'm more optimistic just because it's always inspiring to see what so many people are doing on different aspects. I mean, I kind of knew that was going on, but just seeing the wealth of it, I suppose, that's always really, really helpful. And I have to say also some of the institutions on the stage, just hearing and seeing what they're doing and that it's really like quite high on their agenda. I think that makes me quite hopeful. Or more hopeful.
Yeah, but that's beautiful. I really like that. Thank you. And also like how you said, the wealth of, everything sort of coming together. So thank you so much for sharing that. Somebody that feels less... No, you see, this is the thing. Once you avoid eye contact with me, it's like a given that I'm going to ask. Would you mind standing up and maybe sharing? You feel less optimistic than yesterday.
Not necessarily less optimistic, but it's more like the same kind of level.
Okay.
It's more...
Because you knew most of the things? Okay.
Of what I already thought.
Yeah, okay.
We're already doing a lot, but not
enough.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
So it's not increased optimism.
No.
Fair. I also didn't provide a neutral, sort of stagnant, emotional statement indeed. You're also standing up. Would you like to share why?
It was just very impressive to have the three DG Santé, DG Climate, DG Research together.
Yeah.
Sitting, talking
about
the same thing.
Oh, that's
it was,
interesting.
I think, maybe the first time, from my knowledge,
that
this happened.
That you've seen it, okay. Oh, but that's great. Yeah, and you're referring to the opening session when we indeed had 3 DGs from different departments sitting together.
I thought this was very impressive and encouraging.
Yeah.
The rest, there is a lot to do.
Yeah, there is a lot to do. But that's amazing. Thank you all so much. You may all sit down again. A big round of applause for yourselves and for sharing. Is there anybody that likes to comment on the sentiments in the room? How do you guys reflect on it?
Yeah, if I may. Well, I don't know. You didn't ask me the question because you asked the audience.
Yeah, but you may also...
Yeah, I'm not sure on which one I would have stood up, actually. And the reason is that, yes, of course, I'm an optimist by nature. That's why I'm European. Yeah. I'm optimist because I know that in the end, we're all the time on the right track and we really want to get it right. My question is, however, are we doing enough, fast enough? I mean, it's good, of course, that DG, with all due respect, I am with the European Commission, but DG Klima, DG RTD, and what else? And DG Santé, we're sitting together, very powerful, I'm hearing here. Yes, of course it's very powerful, but this is how it should be all the time. Why isn't it happening? Yeah. And this is why isn't it happening, at all levels? Not only in the Commission, I'm not pointing fingers here. If anything, the Commission has, through the Horizon programme, started a new instrument which are called missions. I'm sure you've heard about missions. Yeah. And this is exactly the point. This is exactly the point.
It's about
we need to really crush those silos and really, conception, work together. Of course, this doesn't mean that we don't fund basic research and we don't want the researchers and the scientists to do their work. Of course we want them to do that, and we'll continue to do that. And it's really important that we have the headway in that. But then we also have to make sure that the pipeline towards policy, towards innovation, also exists at the same time, and that the actions are taken by the governments. I think this is normal, isn't it? This is what we expect. Yeah. And you were supposed to ask me about a quote, but you haven't asked me the question. I'm going to tell you the quote
anyway.
Tell
me a quote, Joanna. I'd love to hear it now.
And I'll tell you the reason why I'm saying that. Because the quote is the following. Because your question was going to be, I'm sorry.
No, this is perfect.
I'm just taking the crystal ball in my hand.
Yes, but a quote that inspired you.
So the question was going to be, which quote from yesterday have you been inspired with? Now, I have to, of course, confess, I was not here yesterday. So I was told by my very, very able colleagues that this quote, is it okay by you? And I said, yeah, of course it's inspirational. I saw it at like 1 o'clock in the morning yesterday. So I said, the world is coming together at a time when the world is coming apart. I love that opening line. Oh. It is undeniable that we must collaborate together to tackle one of the greatest challenges of the 21st century. However, we must not underestimate the power and even responsibility we as individuals have to address climate change.
Yeah.
The question is, how well will we use our individual power to do so?
Ah, that's beautiful.
Yes.
I should have asked you
that. Of
that.
course it's inspiring. This boils down to me, not in the sense of egoistic me, but what's my responsibility?
Yeah.
I'm also a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah.
Now, my question is, of course, but that me needs to sort of connect with them up there who have the power to change things. Of course I have the power to change things. Yeah. Alone, probably I can't do much. But I need to be aided and abetted by an ecosystem that's going in my direction, in the direction that I want it to go. Yeah. And of course Europe has always been, the purveyor of hope and change and, never say die. Yeah. But for heaven's sake, why aren't we doing all this joining up much more efficiently together? Yeah. Why aren't we giving the individual power more encouragement from the top, from the sides, from the bottom, that yes, we're all going the same direction, we're all pulling in the same direction. Yeah. And I think this is exactly the point.
Yeah, I love
that we need to do more of. So what I really hope is that whoever's listening to us out there, not only WHO, of course, WHO will want to notice the transdisciplinary, which is great, the speed, a bit better, but not so great yet.
But it's also
But I think it's the governments also at every level of power and influence that needs to be themselves taking action and seen to be bringing about the impact that really encourages the individual not to feel helpless, but to really feel helped out.
Yeah, and empowered. I love that. I love it. Yes, we can have a big round of applause for that. And I love how you say it's both. Yes, of course, it's the institutions. Yes, of course, it's the system that needs to aid and abet. But it's also about individual. And the word itself says it, right? Responsibility, the ability to respond. It means that you have power over whatever it is that you can do and is within your reach. And if everybody takes that, along with systems and along with institutions supporting that, there's a whole lot that we can do. I'm happy you shared it. Now, we are also running and flying out of time. So that was a beautiful sort of statement. Thank you so much, Joanna. Maybe I will just quickly like to go to you, Omnia and Francesca, because I also want to look ahead for just a minute, because there are numerous sessions that we'll have today in a little bit. And I'm just interested also to hear from you. I mean, yesterday we had a lot of exciting conversations about the direct and indirect impacts of climate change on health. But today, after this session, you will also be speaking, Francesca. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you'll be speaking about, because it's a session with a bit of a different angle, right?
Oh, I'm not going to do the spoiler.
No, indeed. We should keep some suspense.
No, but I think that today will be, again, another super exciting day, because we will be speaking of climate change and health sector. So we will be delving into what exactly Joanna was saying and what came out from yesterday. And it is about action. And we will be doing a lot. I'm looking here, Chris, I'm just thrilled, just waiting to hearing from you, that it is exactly going into this direction, because again, and I will use this also to put out my quote from yesterday, that was research is nothing if we are not translating that then into action. So this is a very strong statement, a very strong statement. And Joanna, thinking of you, I'm thinking of the role of the so-called boundary spanners. This comes from social sciences, and are those people who are able to bridge and to keep their feet in different fields. You know? So when you are appealing to each one of us as an individual to do our bit, I think that we can do a lot exactly also by doing this, performing this kind of bridging. And those who are here in this room are doing exactly that.
I love that. Thank you so much.
I really hope to see more of this as we move forward in the day.
I'm going to take that along, bridge spanners. I love the concept. Thank you so much. Omnia, maybe some brief final words from you, because there is a session. I mean, I already mentioned you're the youth ambassador, but in that role, you're also taking a leading interesting role for the Young Scientists Forum that is taking place. You guys have been preparing for these past couple of weeks, to have main takeaways and main insights for this specific conference. There is a session at 3 p.m. here in the plenary, so make sure to be there or be square. But maybe can you just, again, without doing spoilers, I love how you said that, Francesca, but can you maybe give us a bit of a sneak peek of what we can expect for that specific session? Because I'm actually quite curious to hear.
I think this is the session I'm most excited about because we have with us 6 amazing young scientists. And the session is going to be a bit different. So I won't spoil how different it's going to be, but it's definitely going to be very exciting. Not only will you learn about their incredible work that goes across all the different aspects around health and climate change, be it adaptation, mitigation, and much more. But it will also be an opportunity for you to listen to the calls to action that they have for the specific agenda, but also for the work as each one of you go back to their own efforts and think about their calls to action and how we can do that together with them. And my final key I think, quote that reflects this session, which is what the Minister of Belgium started her intervention with when she said that it is not a question of belief, it is about the science. And this is what the young scientists are going to bring in to the conference.
I love that. Thank you so much. Everyone, can we have a big round of applause for Omnia, Francesca, and Joanna? Thank you all three so much. Okay, thank you so much. And we go on to the next session. That is the cue for the leader.